Hello, hello. Oh, now I can hear myself. So good morning, everyone. It's good to see so many familiar and friendly faces here, even on a Sunday morning in Brussels, which I think is like an unconventional way to meet. As we said, I lead strategy and product for M0. We're going to talk a little bit more about M0 in a second. And the theme of it's a really fast chat today. It's about 10 minutes, and we're going to talk about reconstructing the monetary stack. So unfortunately, I won't be able to walk you guys through how to actually reconstruct the monetary stack, but I'll try to take a stab at that. I think we're all gathered here today, because of this theme, right? Stablecoins. And prior to joining M0, Luca and the team, I spent 8 years at Circle, and I led the build out of USSC. So I would like to think I know a thing or two about the term. But I think, as with many people yesterday, we were talking about, Seb was opening up with some categorization and classification. I'm also not a fan of this term. I think there's so much potential for the technology in and around this sector, which is still kind of the killer sector in crypto. But stablecoin as a term, I think indexes people too much on the idea that there is a coin and there is an attempt to kind of stabilize its price, which is really kind of a minuscule part of what this sector could be. So let's talk about what the sector could be, and in the spirit of our good philosopher Kamala Harris, let's talk about what stablecoins can be, unburdened by what they have been, and I will have one more mention to politics, and then I'll stop, I promise. But I think what really interests me personally, and probably, hopefully, a lot of you guys in the room, is not so much this idea of having a coin that has price stability. Honestly, that's a bit boring. I think the much more interesting topic behind what we do in this sector is how can you have something like the dollar running on the internet. I think that's really more of what this sector can potentially achieve. And if you think like that, then I think there's a significantly larger opportunity for disruption and innovation. I don't like to, I was talking about this the other day, I don't like to rationalize by analogies, but if you think about the early days of the internet and how just the media industry and newspapers, for example, the first online version of the New York Times was literally like a scanned version of the print newspaper, right? And that was like a V1 for how media and newspapers could work on the internet, but it was honestly, and today looking back, quite obviously not the way to disrupt the industry. In similar ways, I think, if you want to consider how something like a currency, the most popular currency in the world, like the dollar, could run on the internet, I think it's fair to say that we're just in the V1 of that, and there's a lot more to happen. I am a technologist by background, so I always look at things from the perspective of tech layers and stack. And if you want to think about money, again, this is my own personal view. I wrote about this, but it's definitely not a formal classification that is accepted by anybody. But the way that I look into money, there are several layers, and in this base layer of money, there's obviously things like the belief system that we as a society come around, the things that we ascribe value to, in the case of the dollar, probably situating around the U.S. government, the U.S. treasuries, and the belief that the U.S. will continue to pay its bills. On the top layer, you have all the applications for money, which are the things that people obviously touch a little bit more, whether they are businesses or individuals. But there's all this stuff in the middle that I call middleware that we mostly don't talk about. Even in these contexts where we talk about the sector as stablecoins, we don't touch on a lot of these topics here. Issuance, like who issues, who should issue, how do you govern all of that, what are the right incentives, and how do you transport and settlement things between these layers. If you think about this in the traditional financial monetary stack, it's very complicated and very cumbersome, and probably based on a lot of solutions that were architected back in the 50s and 60s and 70s. So that's where we think there is an opportunity to go beyond this idea of just a coin that has price stability to actually reconstructing the monetary stack for something like the dollar. And that's the space that we're trying to work on at M0. So what is M0 quickly, and we have a team here, we're happy to chat with folks later. We won't have time to go into this in much detail, but M0 is essentially an infrastructure that powers what we think is the first open federation for crypto dollar issuers. So first of all, we like the term crypto dollar more than stablecoin. Even though I think we need to meet with Seb and kind of agree on what it actually means, because I think we have different interpretations for that. But we think it's a better term, because then it doesn't mean that you're just building an asset on chain that is anchored to something that already exists. We're really trying to reconstruct that part of the stack, as I said, and think about how you could have the dollar running on the internet. But what essentially is, in a little bit more detail, is that it's essentially a set of on-chain protocols with also some off-chain technology that we built that allows for entities to become this role that we call a minter on the network. And so these entities, and it can be any business, they can come to the network, they can enter an agreement with an operator of a special purpose vehicle to essentially pledge some particular type of collateral to the protocol on chain. Right now, you can think of that collateral as essentially short-term US Treasuries. It could evolve in the future, but right now it's very simple, very vanilla. That collateral gets stored in a particular type of structure that lives off-chain, and therefore there's another actor that we call a validator that is basically looking through that structure and saying, yes, there are assets over there and they comply with the criteria for those assets. And if you have those proofs that those assets exist on chain, that minter entity can essentially mint fully fungible stablecoin on chain. And what that allows you to imagine is really, again, thinking about the previous picture that I had, thinking about this base layer for the dollar, essentially short-term US Treasuries as the best representation for a claim on the dollar, without like the need for intermediary risks such as commercial banks and any other entities in between, and connect that directly with the money issuer that lives on chain. Not only that, not connect that with one money issuer, but connect it with the federation of money issuers, because again, that's a call to action that we always like to do. I think we like to say that crypto and blockchain technology, they allow for the financial system to become much better, much more effective, potentially decentralized. But then what we are doing in this space is really a little bit of what happened with the advent of commercial banking, kind of 200 years ago, where everybody was kind of printing their own version of money in a non-interoperable way. I think today commercial banking works in a federated model, and our sector does not work in a federated model. And I think we ought to change that. It's about time for us to move to that V2 or V3 even. So that's the model that we have, and I'll mention, as I said, the last political joke here. We think that, I would imagine many of you guys here in the room and some of the folks who were here yesterday are involved in one way or the other into building products in the space, building stablecoin products. I think a lot of you guys, or a lot of those guys here yesterday, unfortunately will not succeed at scale. In fact, the majority will probably fail. And not because you're not smart, not because you can't implement what should be implemented, but mostly because money is a network effects product, right? And I think really everybody trying to solve this problem for themselves in really siloed and non-interoperable ways. I think the time has passed for that. Like, we should figure out ways to become more allied and work in the form of networks and federations. And so we are really trying to propose this model, which is an innovative model to the market, where essentially instead of building an asset in this space and then trying to fight and bribe people for adoption, you start actually from the use case and walk yourself way backwards into an issuance model that is actually democratized and open for a federation of entities. So we invite everybody who is interested in that, who's interested in issuing a stablecoin, who perhaps has a use case but doesn't quite have the best go-to-market strategy or the best interoperable stack, to come to us and join the federation and join our movement. If you want to learn more, just head over to m0.org or find us on Twitter. Thank you.